Allow me to steal the line that basically everyone's been using for weeks now. Showtime is on Broadway. Patrick Kane is a New York Ranger. Real quick, think you know which way it's going to go? Head on over to Sports Interaction. When the puck drops, Sports Interaction has you covered pregame, live betting on all major sports, including baseball that is starting, gosh, I love the summer, and prop bets. Want to bet? Head over to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN and download the Sports Interaction app, but only if you're 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Honestly, this is one of the most dramatic trade stories from start to finish, although you could argue that it's not finished, that I can remember ever. Like maybe since the drama that led to Martin St. Louis getting traded from Tampa, ironically, to the Rangers. Rangers always seem to take advantage of these situations. The New York Rangers don't really feel like they're going to get Patrick Kane, or they're skeptical. They're not sure they can pull it off, so they get ahead of the market and they trade for Vladimir Tarasenko, who, naturally, scores in his very first game as a Ranger. Patrick Kane does an interview where he talks about how very outwardly and obviously is disappointed that he's not about to become a New York Ranger. I can't think of the last time that a player who was still on a team talked about how upset he was to not be getting traded to a specific team. Sometimes you hear about guys at the deadline and they want to get moved so that they can go win one last cup or something like that. No, this is way too specific. He wanted to go to the Rangers. Then, as time passes, word starts trickling out that the Rangers might just be able to make Patrick Kane and Tarasenko work. Cap gymnastics out the wazoo. They have two guys sitting on the bench, not even playing a shift. Keandre Miller gets suspended, further complicating matters. They have to wait till a certain day in the week so that the trade can even be cap compliant. And then it finally happens. Here we are. The Chicago Blackhawks trade Patrick Kane to the New York Rangers, half retained on his $10.5 million deal, and the Arizona Coyotes retain on the other 25% that they're able to. In what has been a slew of three-way deals in recent days, the Rangers become yet another team to acquire a player with a decently big cap hit at a quarter of the number, which is $10.5 million, so that's very important for them. According to Elliot Friedman, it's a conditional second rounder going to Chicago in the Kane deal. It becomes a first rounder if the Rangers win 2 rounds, but pick moves to either 2024 or 2025. He also mentioned that the Arizona Coyotes get a 3rd round pick for brokering this deal, which is tidy work for them as well. Minnesota has been the 3rd man for 2 deals in recent weeks. Ryan O'Reilly and Dmitry Orlov. They got a 5th for one of them and a 4th for the other. So for the Coyotes to get a 3rd is pretty good, considering all they had to do was eat some cap. And now Patrick Kane becomes one of the unbelievable list of legends to never actually play for the Arizona Coyotes despite being on their payroll. So it's actually Patrick Kane to the Rangers in exchange for a conditional second rounder that can become a first rounder and a 4th round pick. So the trade, as it pertains to New York Rangers fans, it's Patrick Kane going to the Rangers, and Chicago gets a conditional second round pick that could become a first, and they also get a 4th round pick. Now you're going to get a lot of people saying, oh my goodness, a 2nd and a 4th for Kane? That's a fleecing! What makes it even more difficult is Kane had a full no move clause, which means he gets to dictate exactly where he goes. I made this comparison on the podcast recently. It reminds me of Jarome Iginla a few years ago, where he essentially had a deal done to go from the Calgary Flames to the Boston Bruins, and instead he nixed the deal at the last minute. I said this on the podcast recently, but this actually reminds me of the Jarome Iginla deal from a decade ago, where he was the captain of the Calgary Flames and he was going to get dealt and it was going to be a big deal, except he got to dictate where he went, and they had a deal in place to send him from the Flames to the Bruins, and it wasn't even that great of a windfall. And then he said no to the deal. He wants to go to Pittsburgh, and the deal was completely underwhelming because he only wanted to go to one place. And certainly he's not the only player to ever do that. Claude Giroux just last year made it obvious, listen, if Philly's going to trade me, I want to go to Florida. Not Colorado, who was also allegedly in on him. I want to go to Florida. A decision that I'm sure he feels a certain way about. Pause for producer Drew's laughter. Things changed extremely fast on the Kane front, and I hate to make everything about the Toronto Maple Leafs, but this actually kind of starts with the Maple Leafs. Offensively, Kane was not having a great season, at least by his standards. He was at about 0.75, 0.8 points per game, and his defensive metrics were terrible. Now, the defensive metrics I'm willing to brush aside on account of he's won the Cup 3 times and MVP, and he seemed perfectly fine when the Blackhawks were good, and maybe you're not going to have good defensive metrics on one of the worst teams in the entire league. But what I think was more concerning is the scoring touch wasn't there like it was before, and all these rumors were swirling about Patrick Kane's hip and how he's playing in discomfort, and he may need surgery for it. Then on February 15th, the Chicago Blackhawks, with Patrick Kane in the lineup, visit Toronto to play the Leafs. And they were bad. They were not good at all. They got filled in, and even worse, Patrick Kane did not look dangerous. He only played 18 minutes. He had 19 shifts, 4 shots on goal, -1. And all the pundits, all the loser YouTubers like me, everyone was talking about, oh boy, I wouldn't trade for the player we saw in this game. And that game was actually the 4th game in a 4-game pointless streak for Patrick Kane, where he was a minus player in all 4 of those games. His season was not heading in the right direction at all. Kane's very next game in Ottawa on February 17th changed everything. He plays over 20 and a half minutes and has 2 goals on 3 shots. The next game, ironically, against Toronto, as they visited Chicago, Kane lit them up like a Christmas tree. 3 goals and an assist for 4 points in just over 17 minutes. That's all he needed. 5 shots on goal. Against the Vegas Golden Knights, 25 minutes. 7 shots on goal. None of them were actually goals, except, yes, they were! He scored a clap bomb buzzer beater on a breakaway in overtime to win the game for Chicago, except it was like less than 0.1 seconds after the buzzer, so it didn't count. But he did have an assist in the game, so the point streak continues. Then, in what we now know will be Patrick Kane's final game as a Chicago Blackhawk, at very least this season, he played the Dallas Stars and had 2 goals and 1 assist. Patrick Kane had 7 goals and 3 assists for 10 points in his final 4 games as a Blackhawk. Elliot Friedman was talking about how Kane was playing mad, and you can look at that in a couple ways. Number 1, yeah, he's playing mad, and he's getting into playoff form. The other way of looking at it is, where was this all year? Well, he was playing on Chicago. He was playing on Chicago when he put up 7 goals in 4 games. And listen, I don't know if he's going to score at nearly a 2-goal-a-game clip while he's on the Rangers, but I can tell you, I think it's going to be way easier for them to do it. Check out this nonsense. From Ryan Mead, here's a look at what the Rangers forward group could look like. First line, Chris Kreider, Mika Zibanejad, Vladimir Tarasenko. Second line, allegedly, Artemi Panarin, Vincent Trocheck, underrated, and Patrick Kane. Kane reunited with Panarin. Oh my goodness. Alexis Lafreniere, Philip Hedl, and Capo Caco as your third line. Jimmy Vesey, Barclay Goodrow, and Tyler Mott as your fourth line. To get Tarasenko and Kane without having to give up one of Lafreniere or Caco, that's incredible. Prices have dropped big time this trade deadline over the past week. This was not the conversation we were having 2 weeks ago when guys like Vladislav Gavrikov are supposed to be going for like a first and a third and like maybe an arm. Producer Drew, can you put the forward group right here? Look at this. Look at this. If people talk about, I don't know if I believe in the Rangers defense. The defense gets the puck up the ice, and that's all they got to do with this group. Oh, you can't always outscore your problems. Yeah? Watch them. Watch them try. They're definitely going to try. And I think you're forgetting that Igor Shesterkin is in net. And he hasn't been great recently, but he's Igor Shesterkin, and that's probably not going to be the case for long. Adam Fox, Keandre Miller, Jacob Trouba is one of the most feared hitters in the league. Even Yaroslav Halak, their backup, has had a pretty unbelievable season. This is a team that went to the Final Four last year, and yes, they're down Andrew Kopp, but they are up Vladimir Tarasenko and Patrick Kane, both of whom, by the way, have won Stanley Cups. What an arms race in the Eastern Conference. What an arms race in the Metro Division. Who's going to play who? Carolina versus New York. New York versus New Jersey. New Jersey versus Carolina. Any possible matchup out of those three, none of those teams should be going down in the first round. None of the Bruins, Leafs, or Lightning should be going down in the first round. But they're gonna. The Boston Bruins still exist, so I don't know if I'm willing to say that the New York Rangers are the new odds-on favorite out of the East, but they gotta be the odds-on favorite out of the Metro after all of this, don't they? At least today, Tuesday, 3 days ahead of the trade deadline. The Hurricanes added Jesse Puljujarvi. Cool. The Devils got Timo Meier, also cool. It's not Patrick Kane and Tarasenko within weeks of each other. As for the other teams involved in this deal, Chicago and Arizona, they get draft picks out of it. Drew, can you put the Chicago draft picks right here from Cap Friendly, who we love? Okay, there's Chicago's. Can you put Arizona's next to me? There you go. There's Chicago's draft picks. And there's Arizona's draft picks. How many draft picks are in this photo? That's ridiculous! But if you're going to rebuild, I guess that's the way to do it. So, what do you think of this deal? Can you believe that the Rangers were able to get Kane for so cheap? What do you think of Chicago's performance in all this? What do you think about Arizona's performance in all this? Do you think the Rangers are going to end up in the third round at very least, so that conditional pick becomes a first? Let me know in the comment box down below, but for now, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. Patrick Kane is a New York Ranger.